Hi, thank you for joining us today. This is the Lunch and Learn for the Oklahoma Federation of Democratic Women's Club. And today we're going to be talking about voter registration in minority communities. And joining me today are Roxana Foster from Rock the Native Vote, Megan Cruz, Oklahoma Federation of Democratic Women's Club, part of the party Tulsa. But I got it out. And then Garland Pruitt from the NAAC of Oklahoma City. And then we have one more who may be joining us here pretty soon. But we'll just go ahead and get started here. Um, sorry. Okay, we'll just go ahead and get started here. I'd like to start off by everybody giving a little background on what you do in your organization. If you could just introduce yourself. And we'll start here with Roxana, please.
Hi, thank you for having me today. I'm Roxana Foster, and I'm with Rock the Native Vote. I am the coordinator for that organization. We're nonpartisan, nonprofit group that was started in 2004, and by a young lady. Her name is Cinda Hughes. She's Kiowa Nation, and now she's no longer with us, but her legacy is that this organization is still around and we carry on. And we're a group that, well, we were at a conference, is how it started out, with Cindy Hughes, and quote unquote, in that conference, there were people that said that they were ignoring the Native American people because, quote unquote, they do not vote. So, based on that, she started this group. And over the years, we've had some time where we were not right out there and we were a little slow. And then we have years where we're very active. But that's what I do right now. And I organize our organization to attend different events throughout Oklahoma and urban area. I can't hear you.
Muted myself. You'd think I know how to do this after 2 years of sitting at home. Next, we have Megan Cruz. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good. Thank you again for getting this all together and getting us together. It is quite an important issue. I'm Megan Cruz from Tulsa. I'm the vice president of the Tulsa County chapter of the Democratic Women's Federation, and that's what I'm here representing today. I am honored, of course, to be here with you guys. I also sit as the alternate for the Tulsa County election board for the Democratic Party, which is always interesting. I love it. And, hey, my parents met at a Democratic function, so it's kind of in my DNA, and I'm honored, and I feel, again, privileged to be joining you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then next up, we have Garland Pruitt from the NAACP in Oklahoma City.
Yes, my name is Garland Pruitt, president of Oklahoma City branch NAACP. And voting is so important. We used to say, from the water you drink to the air you breathe, everything you do, politics is involved in it. In order to fix, change, or correct any of those particular areas, you have to participate. It's one thing to have some conversation concerning voting and participating and being involved. It's a whole other thing to be active and engaged. I've been active and engaged for quite a while, from back in my days at UAW, United Auto Workers, A. Philip Randolph Institute, all the way up into the NAACP. Every one of those particular organizations are involved in voter participation. When they tell you now that we got, all of these different states have tried to pass 300 and some brand new laws within the last few years that let you know the importance of your participation. We can never, ever, ever get enough of it as far as our participation is concerned. We see what's happening across the water right now, and we have to maintain a posture that won't cause it to escalate any more than what it is. And voting has everything to do with that particular issue, and it's happening right here at home, and we're not even addressing it. So as we go forward in this dialogue today, I look forward to it. Thank you again for allowing me to participate.
Thank you. And then we also have with us Jakia Harrison. She is the ODP Affirmative Action Officer. Jakia, welcome. Thank you and for joining us. And if you could just give us a short introduction to yourself.
Sure thing. Apologize for being just a few minutes late. Been running around today. But yes, my name is Jakia Harrison. I serve as one of the affirmative action officers for the Oklahoma Democratic Party. I also am the national or one of the national committee persons for the Young Democrats of Oklahoma, as well as the secretary for the African American Federation for the state of Oklahoma as well. And so I am super excited to be here. One of the things that I love to talk about with people now, it took me a little while to actually find my voice in this work and being able to speak truth to power, but making sure that people understand that it is very important for young folks, especially to get out and vote, especially in minority communities. I grew up in Northeast Oklahoma City, and so I had the opportunity to be able to participate in one of the campaigns for the elections that took place on yesterday. And I think it's even more so important when we see those numbers that came out yesterday that just a little over, I believe the correct number is 1,033 people voted in the Oklahoma City Public School District 5 race. And that is an extremely low turnout number when we were talking about tens of thousands of people that actually are registered to vote and actually should be having their voices heard. And so it's local elections like that and platforms from there on out that we really have to have our voices heard so that it can be understood that we have a place here and that we definitely should be making our voices heard on a scale from local to state to national levels.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone's introduction. What we're going to do is we're just going to have kind of an informal discussion about voter registration in minority communities and how that looks, how your organizations are tackling this issue, and any challenges that you're having right now. The first thing we want to talk about is I saw some of the Oklahoma voter numbers. And it looks like the voting age population is around 2.8, 2.9 million. But as far as the election board numbers, it shows that only 2.2 million of those people are registered to vote. So we have a gap there. There's a lot of people there that are not exercising their right to vote. So if you could just talk about your organizations and just in general, how and why voting is so important. And I know some of you touched on it in your introductions, but let's kind of dive deeper into the how and the why of why voting is so important, especially at this stage of where we are in the world. Anybody can jump in. We can start. Actually, Jakia, could you start because you kind of got me thinking about this. Go ahead.
Sure thing. What I will say is that in 2021, I'm not sorry, still trying to get these years together. And a pandemic brain will do that to you a little bit. But that's the reason. I believe that that's where I was getting ready to go with this is that the pandemic had a huge impact on voting everywhere. But what I will say is that Oklahoma has never pushed past the limit when we're talking about voting. We have, elected officials that tout the fact that we have one of the most secure election systems in the country, if not the most secure. And yet we still see legislation that comes up to be able to, quote unquote, make it more secure. But we rank 50th currently in the country for voting. And so we're not doing something right. We're not making it accessible. We're not doing something that is actually getting people to actually get out and do the work of voting. And so I think one of the things that has been discussed, especially in the Democratic Party itself, is that we've got to get folks registered. One, so that means getting into those local community organizations, partnering with folks and making sure that we actually are hearing what they're doing, because most of the time those local organizations already know what to do, and that is meeting people where they are. And so we can't say that we're going to reinvent the wheel and come up with something that is an extremely difficult or more pronounced type of strategy. We really already know what to do. We just really have to implement it. We have to be able to do what's necessary to get the boots back on the ground and saying, we're going to get these people registered to vote again, and we're going to push them to the polls. And so I think that's the only way that we're really going to see that number increase, where our voter registration numbers increase, and then see the number of people in the state that actually engage in the voting process of voting, and then thereafter engaging their elected officials. I think that it's going to be a full process to that.
Very true. Because it doesn't matter how many people we have registered to vote if they're not actually going to vote.
Exactly.
We have a voter engagement problem too. Anybody else want to tag on to this?
Yes, I think the biggest problem I see as far as the voting area is concerned is too often we see things that are unjust, unequal, and unfair, and we think too many people spirits are broken and don't feel as though their efforts are working. But we've got to be able to tell our story and show the positive as to the reason behind us participating. Just an example how we ended up with Ms. Horn ended up getting in there when she did, and then now she's been replaced with Ms. Bryce. But when you live in a state where, like you just said, ranked 50th in participation or turnout, that's a problem. That means those that are in power still have the wherewithal to continue to abuse, misuse their power, title, and position, and it's harder to beat an incumbent. I noticed yesterday we had a few. I got involved in a few different elections, and I noticed a couple of them did win. But I was disappointed what took place down there in Norman, where they lost the mayor to one of those. We'll say conservative. I say they sick. We have a sick society. Until we recognize, and understand that, that's our challenge. That's our charge. So in order to get people engaged and involved, we got to be able to show examples of the benefits. So now our young people got to know you have someone who's trying to provide you with the college education and be paid for, and someone won't even fund education at the elementary level. I mean, that's the difference. Until we show those different comparisons, that's what people need to see. Someone is trying to give you something, provide you something, and someone is in the process of trying to take away what you do have at the present time. Let's put it into private education. Let's put it into charter schools. We're not opposed to those, but when you take it from public education, that's a problem. When the teachers themselves ended up having to rally at the Capitol, thousands across the entire state, and even before they can get their little raise, they were trying to take it from them. Who was trying to give it to them? Who was trying to take it from them? These are the types of comparisons in which we have to continue to bring to the table in order to, they call it all politics is local, bread and butter issue. All of those things are alive and well, but we as a party, we as individuals, we as concerned citizens have got to bring that we got to hammer that in, and it don't happen overnight, and it don't happen one or two times. It's an ongoing, continuous thing that we have to do.
Exactly. Go ahead, Megan.
I agree. Education is key. Like I said, I was so lucky to have been able to grow up in a household where I was taught what a privilege it was to pay your taxes, to help your fellow man, and to vote. And I realized how incredibly lucky I was. And I don't have children, but I care about the educational system around me and what they are learning and what they aren't learning, what's being left out, and what's just being made up by legislators. It's not relevant in real life, or it seems there's a lot of solutions searching for a problem that's usually not there. But like you said, education is truly key. And when that information, or when that education comes from someone that either looks like you, or that you know and or trust, I feel that that's incredibly important. It breaks down a barrier right off the top, and or right off the bat. And I think people are more inclined to listen and trust.
Exactly. So what do you find that some of the challenges are of getting people both registered and engaged in voting in your particular communities, or just at large?
I think it's an ongoing challenge. One of the biggest aspects that we have attended to do on a regular basis is when you get your churches involved. Most churches do have a political action, well, I'll say an effort put forth in order to get folks registered. I think that is real important that they're engaged. And so your churches, your sororities, your fraternities, the Panhellenic, and any and every organization you're affiliated with, associated with, most of them know that. And so now, like I say, you speak of education. Now, Oklahoma is ranked last in education. One party has the House, they have the Senate, they have the governorship. If there's interested in providing you a decent education, it wouldn't even be an issue. It's just the opposite. They have no interest in providing you with what our kids need. That's a reality. We don't have to accept that. That's a fact. We'd much rather put it in private prisons than in education. We can do better, but we have to make them do better. They will not do better on their own. And that's the challenge. Your numbers, we don't have the numbers right now. We talk about how many Republicans elected, how many Democrats elected. So we got to continue to educate, inform, and enlighten our people that you benefit. You just made mention about folks looking like you in the classroom. Bottom line is, if Pookie and Sally Sue or whoever is educated, I mean, they'll be paying property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes. Ain't nobody giving nobody nothing. Anything we end up getting, our tax base is what end up paying for it anyway. Just some is being disproportionately given or neglected. And so that's what all this old gerrymandering is all about. That's what all this old voter suppression is all about. All these old brand new laws trying to do away with the drop box. They've done that in a bunch of different states where you previously could go and drop your letter in the mail, for your registration, your vote is concerned. And they didn't put them inside the building, and they closed the building at 5 o'clock, that you can't even drop your mail off in there anymore. You can't take Sally Sue or anybody else is there because she's handicapped or can't drive. Our system is what's failing us. So we've got to break down that system by showing examples of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and when they're doing it. The policies, the laws that they're passing is so jacked up, screwed up, messed up. They don't care nothing about no constitution. They don't care nothing about no civil rights, human rights, voter rights. That's our challenge. That's our charge. Educating the general public, those that not participating, and say, we are the difference. You can make the difference. Get involved, participate, get registered, get vote. Educating them, pumping them up, juicing them up, gearing them up to get engaged. That's what we've got to do. That's our charge.
Yes, I do believe that those stories they're key to getting people to understand why their vote is so important. Because if you're just going to the ballot box, you just, I think the challenge is for me especially, is I live in this world day to day. So I see why the vote is so important. But if you have somebody who is either struggling to put food on the table, they're working 2 or 3 jobs, they got to get the kids to school, they got to get dinner on the table at night, they may not see why voting is so important. But you have to meet the people where they are, like Jakia was saying. You got to meet them where they are, and you got to make those stories mean something to them so that we can get them to the polls. One thing that Roxana touched on in your introduction is that they were ignoring the Native vote because, quote unquote, they don't vote. What are some challenges that you're seeing, especially with the candidates or the parties in reaching out to minority voters? Are we doing a good job? Where can we improve that?
I think we need to be more visible and be out there at, every turn of the corner, really, because you need to be out there at where you can be visible to the people that go in the stores or go to shop or go to church, go to functions at church, like wild onion dinners, for instance. And we've had in our conference, the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference, every year we have wild onion dinners. And these are put on by the local churches, and it's quite a bit of endeavor, but they go out. They have their places where they go out and pick wild onions, and then they prepare them and food and sides, and everyone really enjoys it. And so we're there. We set up a table. I think most people are surprised to see us there. And then there are those that say, "Good to see you here." And then there are those who say, "Well, my vote really doesn't count anyway, so I don't register. What's the point of voting?" They're really disillusioned with the system that we have. They don't feel like their voice is important enough to even get out there and engage in voting. But I talk to them, and I try to engage them in a short conversation and tell them that their voice is important. That until we can go to vote and show that we're interested in voting and voice at the local level, especially because where we live, that's what affects us. As Mr. Pruitt was talking about, the taxes we pay. And granted, nothing's for free. So we engage in paying our taxes on every level. So our voice needs to count on every level. And I tell them that this is where we start. This is where we start, is on the local level. That's how important it is. And then, of course, then we go on up. So if your candidate doesn't win the vote this time, well, we try next time. You just keep going and going until you finally can feel like you realize, yes, your voice is important. And I think that once people start getting out there to vote, well, it's like a realization comes over them how important it is for them to get out there and vote. But at first, they may be hesitant because of the politics that has disillusioned them. But I encourage people when I talk to them, and we have a team of workers that go out, and we set up at powwows, at church, at functions. We will set up at school functions, and there are so many events that we have throughout the year, but it's really busy in the spring and summer and early fall. So we're pretty busy with having something every weekend, and during the week we will have some events that pertain to education and Indian education. We go to Sovereign Community School, is a school that we have mostly Native students there, and they will have fundraisers like Indian taco sales, or they will have arts and craft shows, but they also involve the community as far as, for instance, the Indian clinic will come in and they can offer immunizations, vaccinations to, especially with this COVID, and vaccinate anyone that comes, and but they care about the community, and they see that we care about the community, and I think the only way to show is to be there where they're at.
I know that she made mention of how people are so busy and they're doing this and they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Here you have someone trying to help you with that daycare. One party is trying to help with the daycare. One don't care about the daycare. You made mention of different wages and everything else. It was attempted to try to raise the minimum wage. In some other states, they've already raised their minimum wage. All of these you say, ground issues, day-to-day issues, things we can't to maintain and sustain ourselves. Educating, informing, and enlightening folks is what that's all about. Here we were, at least 3-4 years spending money on health care that we were not receiving because of sick politicians. And within the last, just during the pandemic, they decided, well, maybe we might need to get that money. Here we paying for other states that had sense enough to take the money. Here we paying after all of the rural hospitals have closed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, bonehead decision after bonehead decision by our legislators. And when we don't participate in that voting process, it allows them to continue silly, wild, and stupid decisions that impact all of us. And it truly doesn't have to be that way. So the more that we can educate, inform, and enlighten them as to the benefits of your participation, and we're not going to always be successful. They look at Oklahoma and say, you're one of the reddest states in the country. Just sick. Here, Obama got elected 2 times. We can't win 1 county in the entire state. That's how sick some of the folks are just by falling behind stupidity. And so we can't ever give up. As long as we live and breathe, we got a struggle on our hands. So once we know that, realize that, and understand that, stay in the struggle, continue in the struggle, challenge them, confront them, demand something different from what we see, know, and experience every day. That's our charge.
I would also say, I think the original question kind of what are some of the issues that we see within engaging minority communities. We have to quit pretending like Black and brown people are a monolith. We are not the same. We have different issues, different struggles. We come from different socioeconomic statuses. We were raised differently. We have different households. We need to be able to identify the fact that we are different. And so when we are engaging people, we need to actually have that conversation. You quit acting like we all are the same. And that's why we are having such a hard time, I think, with engaging those communities, because we're not having the real conversations. It's hard to have those conversations because I think we identify the fact that we have common struggles. And because if we don't identify and try to take care of those common struggles, then we can't talk about the other issues that we have that are socioeconomic statuses and things of that nature. We're talking about just basic civil human rights. Those are the things that we're really trying to advocate for. But on the other side of it, we still have to realize that we do come from different tax brackets. That like I said, we were raised differently. And for me, when we're talking about age differences, so my grandfather is going to have completely different ideals than what I have at 32 years old. He is gonna and he has instilled in me some of those thoughts and has given me the knowledge of what he went through, but that's not my reality. That's not where I come from. And so when we realize that and realize that we have to approach this differently, that, even within our party structure, within the Democratic Party, I will be the first person to say that I am not your super liberal person. I realize that I grew up in Oklahoma. I realize that this is a conservative state, and it's still taking me some time to adjust to some of the new ideas and things that are being brought forward, but that will come in time. But we still have to meet. When I'm having a conversation, I need somebody to meet me at my level. We have to be able to change and progress together on that. And if we can't do that portion of it, then we're never going to be able to engage folks and get them to understand this is why you really should be voting. This is why we really should be out here, because if we don't take care of those basic human rights, those civil rights that we have been fighting for so long, then we aren't going to be able to take care of the other things. And so that, I think that basic level, that ground level work has to be the beginning of it, and then taking that next step of understanding that we have to be able to change our messaging to be able to get to the people that we really wanted to get to.
And that we may have multiple messages, because it's gotta hit with everybody. Go ahead, Mr. Pruitt. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You made mention of your age. I have kids older than you are. The exact same thing that my grandfather was after and his grandfather was after is the same thing that we're after right now. Just like we didn't have the right to, we had the right to vote, we lost the right to vote, we gained the right to vote again back in 65, we've lost the right to vote in 2013. The exact same challenges. That's no different from critical race theory that ain't even taught in school. It's a wedge issue. It's something to get you distracted. It's a wedge issue to keep you focused on something that you shouldn't be. They had a little capture, had a little girl coming down the steps in Little Rock, Arkansas, looked like she was about 10 or 12 years old. They said that if she could endure that process, you ought to be able to at least learn about that process. My organization, the NAACP, was founded to stop lynching. Lynching then is lynching now. If you putting a knee on my neck,
Of course.
it's the same. So the challenge is still there. The names of the victims are different, but the circumstances are still the same. Racism is live and well. If I got two grandkids, 11 years old and a 13-year-old, they're facing what George Floyd had. Tamara Rice was a 12-year-old killed by the police. Sandra Blair, traffic violation, was killed. Now, this ain't no anti-police, some silly wild crazy jump off at my house. I'm calling the police. But when they get here, I hope they don't shoot me. I'm working on 2 different police task force. Change comes when you get engaged. We cannot ignore it and say, well, I'm gonna say we're seasoned. Y'all say we are old. We say we're in the game. We're active. We're engaged. We're challenging a system that ain't never been equal, ain't never been just, and ain't never been fair. And once you realize that, now let's have some dialogue. Let's have some discussion. Let's do some fixed change and some correction. Let's start there. These are the problems. This is the situation. Now let's talk about it and discuss it. When you get to the point that you can't even talk about a situation, you got a problem. And we understand that problem. You want to maintain power and control in your position. Some folks can't win an election if we don't cheat, if we don't steal. You cannot win an election because you don't have a story to sell. You don't have a platform to sell. All you have is divisive issues and concerns. Carry on.
Ms. Foster, did you have something to add too?
Well, I was going to say that when we go to these events and functions, we engage our conversation with all ages. But right now, I feel like we need to get more young people involved and interested in what's going on, because they are the ones that are coming around the bend that are going to be the next in line who brings in those that are going to be elected. And if we educate and make them aware of some of the issues that we have to deal with and that affect them directly, then, it's really important that we engage all ages. We engage especially the young people. And we have youth ministries that, we have activities for, and we also have elder. And we actually, when I talk to some of the young people, I say, for instance, maybe you're not 17 yet, maybe you're not going on 18 yet, but that's not too far away. And so this is how you can become interested in voting, and how and the process. I think there's a lot of fear, if you will, about, well, it's too complicated, or it's scary to go down and go somewhere and fill out these papers to get registered, when really it's a very easy process. And once you explain to them how easy and how quickly it's done, I've had a lot of good response, but I really enjoy talking to to the young people about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope to be doing more events that involve young people. In fact, we're going to at OU, they're having a basketball tournament, hoops. And so we're going to set up there, and they're really excited about us coming. So I just, that's just a for instance, but I'm excited about going there next weekend. And but that's one of the events that we go, for instance, that we're going to. Not just.
I definitely agree that our young folks is our answer. That's our silver bullet. It really is our silver bullet. When you look at even now, here it is 2022. We ended up with our first Black female Supreme Court justice, making history. Looking at our Vice President, Ms. Harris, still making history. Our young people need to see that we don't care how big the wall is, or how high the mountain or the river is, we can still overcome. We can still master. We can still achieve. We can still accomplish. We got to continue to pour hope into them, because they're the answer. Once we get them engaged and involved, ain't no, like you see some of the riots, demonstrations, and protests across the country, be it the Black Lives Matter and the next 200-300 names they come up with. I support activity. I support engagement. I support progress. I support all of that. Anybody want to stand up, speak up, and demand something different from what we see that is unjust and unfair, right on. I'm with you. Go make it happen. Go get it done. They had Benjamin Hooks was one of the old presidents of the NAACP. And one of the things he said before we left, they were saying, for all of you all saying that we ain't doing this and we ain't accomplished that, and why ain't this done and why ain't that done? We want the young people to say, it's my turn now. It's my turn now. In other words, make something happen. Change it, fix it, correct it, challenge it. We promote it, we support it, we endorse it. Young people is our magic bullet. Once we get them engaged, and we've seen how they've acted across the country, when they do get involved, they might go a little further than they should. But you have to shake the foundations of those that are in power and has a title and a position. They're not doing all they could, should, and ought to be doing. That's our answer. Getting them young people involved, indoctrinate them.
Yes.
Because other folks, they got their knee on my neck.
Yeah.
Well,
and their hand around my neck.
I would say to that point, when we're talking about young people in general, I think that we also have to take into account the new ways that we have to engage them.
Yeah.
We are in a tech world. My brother does not know a life without a cell phone, a video game, a laptop at his fingertips. He doesn't know anything without the internet, basically. And so because of that, I realized that he's going to have to be engaged differently when we start talking about issues like this. When we're talking about voting and things of that nature, we have to be able to, like I said earlier, meet them where they are. And so we have seen a campaign switch over to more social media based situations instead of, you know, what we would consider your, don't want to call it normal, because I mean we
Boots
still
on the
do that, but
ground.
your door knocking, your mailer,
Yep.
your all of those things, the things that we would normally do for a campaign is no longer the things that you see now. And I think the pandemic pushed that even further. That we're now to a point to where social media and internet is going to be your massive tool to be able to motivate and move people to the polls. And so if we're really getting ready to, engage young people, I think that is one of the most major ways of doing that. I think that President Obama's campaign was really instrumental in starting to do some of that in, engaging culture and moving that into how we can actually motivate and move young people to actually get out and vote. We haven't seen numbers like that for young people to get out and vote since then, since 2008. That is insane that we saw such a movement take place and then it automatically dipped off. But it was because we forgot to engage. We took that vote for granted again, and instead we should have been moving that forward. We went back to the thought process that we have to depend on, and I'm just gonna say it, the Black woman vote, to be able to come back and pull us back through the situation, to be able to make sure that we are actually getting the people in place that we should. And I mean, we got to talk about it at the end of the day, that Joe Biden should be thanking a whole lot of Black folk, the Black women in particular, for actually getting out and voting. But I think that that's something here within our state that we actually have to start motivating and utilizing as well. I think that a reason that we are starting to see such an impact happening on our local levels and in our state elections, the reason why we're starting to see that is because they started realizing that Black folks and that brown folks was waking up. You started to see those numbers start to shift when we got into it. The North Tulsa waking up when it was time for the mayoral race, uh, and seeing Greg Robinson and run. That is because Black folks started waking up and saying, "Wait a minute, they're actually paying attention to us." So it might mean we have a little power in this situation. You realize it here in Oklahoma City when you start seeing these county commissioner races and things of that nature. They don't engage the situation until it's actually time for folks to get out and vote. And then you want to come over here and ask. No, engage me all the time. I need to know what you're doing all the time. Because if you're not promoting me all the time, then we have an issue. If you're not promoting what's going to be helpful to my community, which in turn is what's helpful for everybody, then no, you're not helping me. You're not doing what's going to be best for this community that I'm a part of and living in and promoting.
I wanted to just add one thing, is that our organization is partnered with the students that are at OU, the Latinos, and we also are involved with Black Lives Matter, and but we do have some partnerships going on there. We're just not staying to ourselves and by ourselves and only going around to our own events, but we're out there. We go to Scissortail and we go to any of the rallies that are at the. We went to the League of Women Voters, or League of Voter. Let me see, League of Women Voters, and we went to their rally, and we made some connections with Poor People's Campaign. Yes. That's a new one for me. And
Bishop Barber.
Huh?
With Bishop Barber, he's a hero of mine. I love him.
So we're but we're trying to get out there and be engaged with all people of color.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Cruz, you have something to add?
Sorry, one more thing.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I interrupted. I'm just so excited and grateful. I know, empowering young people and giving them not just go get my coffee kind of stuff. I think that's incredibly important, but I cannot thank Rock the Native Vote enough. There have been many times that the Tulsa County Democratic Party has been made aware of events or been invited to events that we were or someone with the party was unable to go to register voters. And, one of our officers will pick up the phone and call Rock the Native Vote and say, hey, could you guys please go and, do this? And every time you guys are on it. So I can't thank you enough, but it just shows that when we do work together, that things get done, and we become almost more of a family. I joke a lot that my friends at the Democratic Party are my family, because I do truly love them, and I feel very, very lucky that I'm able to spend time with people that I can learn from, and I want to turn around and empower younger men and women the same way I was. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think that brought up several good points, that we need these organizations like the ones that you're involved in you have to approach voting registration from so many different angles. You have top down, bottom up, sideways, coming in from the top, from the corner. I mean, you have so many ways that you have to engage these voters right now. I mean, especially what Ms. Harrison was talking about with social media. My kid tells me more off of TikTok that he's learning than he does at school. So, I mean, if we can get candidates who can really figure out that TikTok and Snap videos and all that stuff, man, I'm still on Facebook. I'm 44, so I'm still on Facebook. I saw a post from Amanda Swope, who's running for House in Oklahoma, and she referenced something on TikTok, or I watch it through Facebook Reels. I'm telling all my secrets. But she referenced something that's on TikTok. She said, "Gorgeous, gorgeous girls vote." I was like, oh, she needs to make a TikTok on that, because the kids understand gorgeous, gorgeous girls because that's on social media. And they will walk past your table when it's time to register to vote. But if they see gorgeous, gorgeous girls vote, then they're like, hey, maybe let me go stop and see what Rock the Native Vote is doing, because they have that connection now. And I think what the organizations that y'all were talking about is having bottom line partnership. You're working as allies, and then you can kind of branch off into some of the more specific community issues. But then it's even a farther branch from that, because not all folks in the community have the same issues. I always have a thing where when they talk to Black people, it's always about criminal justice reform, always. And that doesn't hit me like it may hit somebody else. So you've got to have those stories. You got to be on your feet. You got to know that, hey, maybe I need to shift to, maybe it's elder care, or maybe it's health care, or maybe it's the fact that the legislature is trying to take away our petition initiative, where we can't put state questions on the ballot anymore, which is how your medical marijuana got here, or how your Medicaid expansion got here, and now they're trying to stop that. So we got to pivot on those stories. I mean, like Mr. Pruitt said, it's from the water you drink to the air you breathe. It literally is in every single level of your life.
I support everything you said, young lady. And the bottom line is, we have got to get more young folks engaged. They wear that social media. That's one of my shortcomings. And
we're legislating their world.
I'm not as an apt as I should be, could be, and ought to be. And I don't have a problem with the young person do everything and some of what we try to promote, supporting, and doing. We end up now, like I say, I'm a realist. And so now when the national government say, we're going to start celebrating Juneteenth, and then now, before we can even get Juneteenth, we don't want to talk about it because we might make somebody feel bad. You don't get out of here. All of those are wedge issues to keep you all jacked up, screwed up, and messed up. Our system, we got to be, I like to say, bigger than BS, bigger than jive, bigger than shucking and jiving, and
Yes.
address these issues. When you can't talk about a subject, what is your problem? You got to be running from something if you're not even at the level where we can sit down and have an intellectual conversation, open debate, opposites of opinion, stand your ground, and let us stand out as we move forward, trying to fix, change, and correct a world.
Yeah.
They say all politics is local. They are, but everything we do at the local level is happening at the state level, at the national level, at the world level.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world we live in. Social media's got us in Ukraine.
Yes, it does.
We're looking at bodies are laying on the ground here in Oklahoma City. Hello.
Mhm.
We look at talking about criminal justice reform. When we're talking about reform in any form, the trust right now, the jail trust was averaging seven a year dying. 14 died last year. We've had at least 5 to die this year. That tells me it's not working.
Yep.
It's not working.
It's not
And
working.
we don't have a problem saying that.
And we got
We
to
need more folks saying that. Young people, we need you.
We need you. So we have about 7 minutes left to go. I just want to let everybody know that the Oklahoma Democratic Party is having a campaign academy on Saturday, April 23rd. In line with what Ms. Cruz said, it is very important that we have candidates that look like the folks that are going to vote. I mean, it's a way in. It's a way in, and we need it. So we need everybody, young, older, middle-aged, whatever. Everybody.
Well, us
Everybody
seasoned
come.
folks, us old
Well,
people,
seasoned.
we vote.
I'm not gonna say old folks, but yes, those two.
They call us
I
old.
like
I say
seasoned,
seasoned.
I
Yes,
like
I
that.
want
everybody.
Seasoned.
I
We
want
need
to
that.
add in there because I don't know if we brought this up, but I do want to add in there our rural folks too.
Yes.
We have
I'm
definitely taken a step back from, especially I think that it is just a part of our how our society is now that we
Yep.
are starting to focus more on our urban cores. And here in Oklahoma, that the society is changing to focus more on urban cores, which has caused a urban rural divide
Yep.
within our state. But that is also a major thing that we have to start getting back to is engaging those rural folks because a lot of the things that we have started to see has been impacting them. And we've got to figure out what that messaging looks like to be able to say it's impacting us too. So let's get that together, make sure that we can get on an equal footing in who we are electing and how we are engaging those people, young, old, seasoned, whatever we would like to call them, so that we can be able to make sure that their voices are being heard as well. Because I got the chance to go to Georgia during the Senate runoffs, and what I will say is that there are minorities in rural areas too. And so we
Yes.
cannot forget that
We're
we
here.
need to be empty. Exactly.
We're here.
Exactly. We need to be
They say
engaging
2 or
that.
3 anyway.
There's 2 or 3.
Exactly.
Yes, we are here.
Exactly.
I have a
Exactly.
tractor,
But see,
so
the
that
key,
I consider myself rural.
but the key to that is the
So,
same thing they need in the rural areas is the same thing we need here.
You
They
gotta
need
make
health
that.
care.
You gotta make that connection because there is a
mhm.
connection there somewhere for everybody.
They need a
Um,
decent wage.
so many ways. Okay, these last 5 minutes, I'm gonna run through this just real quick. The Campaign Academy, Saturday, April 23rd. You can go to the Oklahoma Democratic Party website or any of the social media to find out more about that. And then there's also going to be the Chat and Chew lunch panel from 11:45 to 1 o'clock on, I think it's the 23rd. Um, I am not sure if that is on site or if it's going to be streamed. If somebody can pop in the comments for me, but go look for that too. And the Oklahoma Federation of Democratic Women's Clubs convention is this weekend. So look on for information about that. And they will be presenting a resolution to protect the right to vote, which is, we know, the foundation of our democracy. We have a quote here: not voting is not a protest, it's surrender. And we just want to make sure that we get that message out. If I tell the people, if all the my vote don't count people got together, they could really make a difference. I mean, just get together, guys. Get to the polls. We don't want to see these awfully low turnouts at elections. I think I saw the school district was like by 58 votes. So don't tell me your vote doesn't matter. I've seen a city council race in my city, Guthrie. It was determined by 6 votes. 6. So we cannot afford to have anybody stay at home on election day. They should be on your calendar. It should pop up for you to remind you to do that. So we have like 3 minutes, just real quick. Anybody want to have any last words for us on voter registration in minority communities?
Yes, the young man, school board, Anderson won, first-time politician. Sarah Banner, Midwest City, first-time politician. These are young people. We need more young people getting engaged. You was making an announcement. We had a program that's going to be this coming Monday at the Capitol, 6 o'clock. It's called the Tree of Life. We established that prior to Martin Luther King even getting a holiday. They pull that tree up, burn that tree down, everything else. Got a regular program. We'll have kids there. They had an essay contest. It's coming Monday at the Capitol, 6 o'clock.
All righty. Okay.
Make sure you get registered. We have one of the most important election cycles that we will possibly see happening
In a
this
long time.
year. It's happening now, so actually get engaged now. But making sure that everybody's getting out to get registered to vote and making sure that they're actually following through in that process. We have the filing deadline is going to be April the 13th through the 15th. So if you are thinking about running for office, you got a little bit of time left to make that decision. And then once you do that, make sure that you're getting people registered to vote so that we can actually get out and support you in those efforts. But we're running this whole thing through November. Of course, we have Senate and both Senate seats. Our congressional seats are up. So we've got a lot of things on the ballot that we need to take care of. And so we've got to be able to get out here and do the work right now.
Absolutely. All right.
Yep.
If you don't have any other final words, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to join us to get this message out on how important it is to vote and be engaged. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.